This is Ash from Revocation and 3 Inches of Blood, and you are watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 378 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with Ash Pearson from Revocation, 3 Inches of Blood, Grave Mass, Ritual Dictates, and also Sound of the Swarm. So, how are you doing today, Ash? That's a hell of a resume right there.
Yeah. This and Marty Friedman too. I play with him occasionally.
Oh shit, dude, that's
Yeah.
my all-time favorite guitarist.
Oh, right on.
Because Rust in
Yeah.
Peace by Megadeth's like my all-time favorite album. That guitar solo in Tornado of Souls is just exquisite.
It's the best, and we got to play that. I played that bit with him because like he's got his own solo music in Japan, and but he has a bit where he puts the Tornado Souls solo into his set. He does it's like that's the only Megadeth like nod that he does to his past at all, but he does the Tornado of Souls bit. So I got to play that with him.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, man. But anyway, how are you doing today? It's great to have you here.
I'm good. Sorry there was an audio issue. Yeah, I think my headphones were giving me trouble, but yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, man. Anytime. So, kind of the format of the show is I want to talk about like your musical history and sort of do a rundown of your discography, but take me back to young Ash Pearson. So, growing up in Canada, what were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to start playing the drums?
Yeah, so I got into drumming. So I'm 39. I'm turning 40 next month. I started playing when I was 12. So yeah, it's been 28 years I've been playing drums or something like that. Which man, it's crazy to say that now, but at the time, I didn't I didn't really even like have I didn't have like a budding musical like um what's the word? Like I didn't have the impulse kind of just like flowing out of me. Like it's not like I was going around hitting pots and pans and drumming on my chest or anything like that. Where it was like, oh, Ash looks like he wants to play drums. Let's get him a drum set. It wasn't even. It didn't start out that way. I know for a lot of like drummers, it kind of did, right? It's like you get a hold of a pair of sticks and then like
Wow,
you're
you got
hitting.
sticks on the side.
Yeah. You're hitting everything, and then your mom and dad are like, "Oh shit, we should get him a drum set." But it wasn't like that for me. But what it was like was that I was watching television, and much music because we have that's our version of MTV up in Canada.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah. So when I first saw, it was basically two. It was about three different things all kind of hit at the same time. It's like I saw Marilyn Manson on TV at the MTV Music Awards, Movie Awards, and he's the Beautiful People. He was playing that, so Antichrist Superstar had just come out, and I'm not like the biggest Manson fan in the world or
Yeah, the
anything,
beautiful
but
pizza.
yeah, exactly. But I was like, oh, that drum beats, it just hit me for some. I was like, I was like, yeah, that's great. And then Korn's Freak on a Leash came out. That record, Follow the Leader, and then
Yeah, the best
I got
Corn album.
yeah. Those first three albums I think are
Yeah, I
fantastic.
think like the first four for me.
Yeah,
Everything after that is kind of
yeah.
either hit or miss.
Yeah, I mean, Issues is great too. Like I still occasionally listen to those to see if they're as good as I thought they were. I'm like those are pretty good songs. I'm like the drumming's David's drumming was great. And then Slipknot, Joey Jordison,
Yeah.
big time. Those were my earliest influences, like my actual kind of what got me started wanting to play drums. And so then, my parents rented me a drum set. And then I stuck with it, and then eventually we bought one, and kind of the rest is history, as they say.
That's awesome. So I was like doing my research. I believe like the first iteration of Sound of the Swarm was Angel Grinder, and they
Yeah,
formed in 2001. So was that like one of your first bands, or did you have any bands prior to that?
I had some like kind of like some guys I would jam with a little bit here and there. I definitely um, credit Angel Grinder as my first band for sure. And yeah, so I met this guy named Ryan Dick. I was 16 and he was 19, and so he was out of high school, and he was a great guitar player and he was just a huge music fan, and he was a real like kind of black metal, death metal kind of guy, and he wrote really good songs. So our first two Angel Grinder records, I still really really like. I think that this really good songwriting. And then Ryan left, and then me and the rest of the guys like stayed together, and we made Sound of the Swarm, and then we made one record with that, and then eventually I started, just like jamming with 3 Inches of Blood. At some point, eventually I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, but one of my other favorite bands at the time was Strapping a Lad. When I started to learn how to play drums more, I was like, at some point I'd heard, I'd heard Metallica, I'd heard Pantera, I'd heard all these bands that I love, but in my mind I'm like, cool. I'm like, that sounds crazy, but I can wrap my head around it. But then somebody played me Strapping a Lad, and I was like, that sounds crazy, and I can't wrap my head around it. I'm like,
That
I'm
was
like,
me that first time I heard them. Like Devin Townsend's a musical genius.
yeah. And so when I first heard Strapping a Lad, I was like, whoa, this. I think this is my new favorite band. Like them and Meshuggah at some point. Like when I first heard Meshuggah, I remember exactly where I was. I was like, what the fuck is this? But when I heard Strapping a Lad, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then I met Gene Hoglan, uh, because he lived in Vancouver, Canada, which is where I'm from. And so he saw me play with Angel Grinder, and then he eventually became my mentor and my teacher. So he taught me how to play drums when I was about 16 years old. I started hanging out with him. So there was a good maybe 3 or 4 year period where I was hanging around with him a lot, and learned a lot of things from him. And so that was not only is he a great guy and one of my best friends, but he was just like he was like my favorite drummer. Like I had already started loving Strapping a Lad, and they're like that's the guy right there. I'm like, no shit, that's him. And then he came up to me and was like, you're really good. I'm like, no, I'm like, you're really good. Are you kidding me? And so and then we became friends. And then again, he's 19 years older than I am, but like, he just like he started being like, hey, do you want to come be my drum tech for this session I'm doing? And hey, I'm playing a show in town. Do you want to be my drum tech? So that's where that relationship started. So those were kind of my early years of playing drums. And so while I was doing that, I was doing the Sound of the Swarm and Angel Grinder and a couple other bands too.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about like Sound of the Swarm because I can't really find like any info about them online anywhere, like music or
Yeah,
anything.
I'll send you a link. That's one of the only bands I really ever wrote music for. Well, it's just like a few riffs, but um, yeah, it was just like it was the singer, bass player, and guitar player of Angel Grinder. The main songwriter Ryan had left, and so we just started our own band, and we just wrote a handful of songs, maybe in about a year's time, and then recorded them and played a few shows. Um, but we didn't really do too much. But yeah, that was a band that sort of got me in to just sort of staying relevant in the Vancouver scene, and then I ended up meeting Shane from 3 Inches of Blood, and then him and I sort of like stayed friends, and then eventually I got a call from them. So Sound of the Swarm kind of like carried over into actually. Well, I auditioned for the Dillinger Escape Plan as
Oh,
well.
really? I never
Yeah,
knew that.
yeah. When I was 21, I went and flew to New Jersey and spent about 4 days with those guys. Uh, right a few days before they left to go record Ironworks in California with Gil Sharon, and so I was 20. Like I said, I was 21. I was good, and I played maybe like 6 songs like pretty well, but I was just still too young, I guess. Like I wasn't that like that extra like unbelievably talented individual needed to like really solidify the gig as the new drummer, you know what I mean? But it's just like so what? I was fucking 21 and I had been playing drums for less than 10 years. Um, but it was an incredible learning experience. And but yeah, right around that time with Sound of the Swarm, I got a call from the Dillinger Escape Plan guys in like it was 2007. And so yeah, I went and hung out with them, and I played like yeah 43% Burnt, and
Wow.
you know, I don't know, Panasonic Youth, and Setting Fire to Sleeping Giants. What was another we played? Yeah, I don't know. We played like a handful of songs, and I became friends with Ben and Liam, and we're still friends to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're one of the craziest bands I've seen. I know there's like this live video on YouTube. It looks like they were playing in like a mall, and then I forget, and then he
Great.
like jumps and like
Yeah.
like walks on people's heads and stuff.
Yeah, that was the Virgin Music Store uh, video where they played live out front of Virgin Records, and then Greg jumps over the crowd at the beginning of Sugar Coated Sour,
Yeah,
the first song. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. And then of course, eventually, like you mentioned, you're already friends with Shane from Three Inches of Blood. And
yeah.
then eventually you joined the band. They were sort of like at the end of the tour cycle for Fire Up the Blade. So how did you end up like joining the band?
They're kind of in the middle of it, but yeah. But yeah, so Shane, it kind of comes to Gene Hoglan is a little bit of the center point of me and Shane meeting. Shane played in a band called Punch Drunk with Gene Hoglan on drums. Gene played in a handful of bands around town that wasn't Strapping and Lad. He played in a band called Punch Drunk with Shane, a really great underrated band that no one's ever heard of, but you should check it out. It's called they made one record to my knowledge, and the record is called Music for, you know how they say music for the masses, you know that
Yeah.
term. Well, it's music for them asses, them
What?
asses. Yeah, you know, like them ass, those assholes or whatever. So music for them asses.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like white, it's like white and black. Punch Drunk, it says on the front. Amazing record, killer drumming. Definitely check it out. So Shane played in that band, and then Gene played in another band called Just Cause. And Just Cause made a record called Finger It Out. Kind of, you know, like figure it out. And then
Yeah.
so that music was really great too. And but eventually Strapping and Lad broke up, and then Gene left town around 2007. So in 2007, I replaced Gene in that band with his help and his blessing and all that stuff. So I was think 20, 21 years old, maybe 21, and I learned I had to learn like this Gene Hoglan level drum. I had this music, and so Shane saw me play with Just Cause back around that time, and was like, oh shit, that young kid can play Gene's music. He can play really well or whatever. And then Sound of the Swarm ended up playing a show with 3 Inches of Blood, and then I went and saw 3 Inches of Blood play, and talked to Shane after the show, and you know we you know I think he just thought I was like, you know, I could string a sentence together, and I wasn't a total dick, and I could play drums pretty well. So when they needed a drummer, you know, I was from Vancouver, which was a huge plus, and I was young, and I don't know, just like, you know, and I was good enough to play in 3 Inches of Blood, I guess. So you know, they brought me out on tour, and it was like maybe a shaky, you know, first year of me being in the band or whatever. But eventually it was like, okay, I think this is our guy, and then I sort of just been in the band ever since.
Right. And then tell me about making like your first record with Three Inches of Blood. Here waits thy doom. I
That's the
like this
one.
album. It's totally different from the previous album. So what was this like being that was like your first record with the band?
My first record, yeah. So we did that. We did that like, you know, they had just done Fire Up the Blades, which to me is a
Yeah, I think
masterpiece.
it's
By
like
the
my
way,
favorite Three Inches of Blood album, by the
it's
way. Like I
it's
remember
my
seeing,
favorite.
dude, I remember seeing like
Yeah.
the video for Goat Rider's Horde on Headbangers Ball back when I was like 13.
Yeah. Oh, so just like on that note, so when Fire Up the Blades, so when I did my very first tour with them, it was January 2007. Sorry, 2008, and I had just turned 22, and um, we were going to meet up. We were main support, so it was the Black Dahlia murder, 3 Inches of Blood, um, so we were supporting them, and then it was Hate Eternal and Decrepit Birth.
What a lineup.
Yeah, and that was my very first tour, and it was the winter time. It was North America, and there was just fucking snow everywhere. It was like there were storm systems like all over the entire continent, and so it was really treacherous. But so we the they needed to make a music video. They didn't have a drummer. I was playing drums, but I was just a fill-in guy, and then at least at that point, and then so they needed to make a drummer. They needed to make a music video for Trial of Champions, so they got the guy who produced their record, Joey Jordison, to
Yeah.
play drums, and then so we played a couple shows, and then to get out to the East Coast, and then we stopped in Iowa, and then I got to just meet Joey and hang out with him all day long while he recorded drums on this music video. So that's when I first met him. Was 17 years ago or something like that, and yeah, so that was a total trip too because he was my favorite. He was one of my favorite
Yeah.
drummers of all time.
Same. Same. I
Yeah,
looked up to him. To him, they pretty much like Slipknot were like that kind of like gateway into like more heavier and kind of bands before I got into like death metal and black metal when I was like
yeah.
13, 14 years old.
Same here, dude, for sure. So yeah, and so then yeah, I basically did like a year and a half or something like that, playing with them, and then it was like, okay, time to make a new record, and then yeah, we just did it in the room together, wrote a bunch of songs and everything like that, and then we went down to Seattle and recorded with Jack and Dino, who did obviously he did Bleach by Nirvana, he did like a whole bunch of the old school, um, fucking what's the label in Seattle? He Mudhoney. He did a bunch of stuff in Seattle in the '90s, and he's been doing it for forever. He's a fantastic producer. Um, but anyway, so yeah, we did it there. I think I had just turned 23, and then the band basically wanted to go kind of in the opposite direction of like the recording approach from Fire Up the Blades. And so we just went like we went like super analog on it. There's no click track, no doubling of vocals. It was like analog, like tape for the kick and snare. We processed that through a tape machine, and yeah, it was all very live. And I mean, some people love that record for that exact reason, and then some people are like, "Oh, that's my least favorite record," because I mean, I think the songs are super solid, but the production is intentionally really simple,
Yeah. I'm kind of
because
feeling like that too. Yeah.
yeah, because we wanted to go old school. I mean, we're like an old school band, and we wanted it just be like to sound that way. But like I said, like I mean, I love 3 Inches of Blood. I've been in the band for a long time, but like Fire Up the Blades to me is a really just like every song on there is fucking excellent,
Yeah.
and
I agree.
it was produced by Joey Jordison,
Yes.
who had a really amazing ear for guitar and drums, and so the production is like super like well balanced, and the drums are just like pounding and pummeling. I think it's a masterpiece. Everyone should go listen to it.
Yeah, same. Still like my favorite 3 Inches of Blood album. Like I said, Benefit. They're like one of those gateways because that was like the first time when I saw the video. I was like, wow, this band has two vocalists. That was the first time getting exposed to like bands that have more than like one singer in the band.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and when it came to like joining up with 3 Inches of Blood, did you want to bring something new rhythmically to the band that they didn't have previously?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because like I was still figuring out like my identity at that time, even though I'd been playing for quite a while. I think it was just like I was like, oh, I was taught by Gene Hoglan, and I played with the Dillinger Escape Plan. Like I'm gonna do the craziest shit I could possibly do in this band, and then I was like, and then like with 3 Inches, I sort of like I learned more the idea of like, oh no, you can't just necessarily do that because there's vocals you got to think of and there's riffs you got to think of. So I learned like I learned like restraint and simplicity where it's actually necessary and needed, you know. So I learned that you can't just be tap dancing all over the place. So um, that's again that's where I learned a lot playing in that band, and a lot of it was like musical sensibility stuff, you know, and just like really trying to service the song. That's where I learned a lot more about like actual like I don't know, like crafting drum parts and stuff like that. And so what I wanted to bring to the band, well, I wanted it to be as good, if not better, of course. And but I wanted to make sure that just I was that um, you know member that was servicing the song, because a band is like a sum of its parts. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to make sure that I was like providing the best drum part possible for the music, you know, and event that's something I came to learn eventually playing in that band, um, was those kinds of sensibilities, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, talking about the last Three Inches of Blood album, Long Live Heavy Metal, I thought this was a pretty good album. I thought it was a bit better than Here Waits Thy Doom. So, what was it kind of like going from like this to this?
Yeah, I like that record too. I did that one when I was like 26 years old, I think. So it was a while ago now, 14 years ago. But yeah, I like that record, and I like the production on it too. I think the drums sound actually really good,
Yeah, it has
and
a very beefy production sound.
yeah, for sure. There's tons of air around it, and I think the tones are great. That was done on a Pearl reference kit, and yeah, I like the songs on it. Some of my favorite ones. I was trying to look around and see. Oh yeah, I got it up there on the wall. Geez, some of my favorite songs. I like that song "Men of Fortune" a lot on there.
Yeah.
There's lots of good ones on there.
Yeah. Metal Woman, Leather Lord,
Yeah,
Die,
Leather
Die
Lord's
for
great.
Gold, Upon the
All
Boiling
right,
Sea 4, all great
thank you.
songs.
Thank you. Yeah. Those are the ones. And yeah, Leather Lord's kick ass. Dark Messenger's really good. Um, and that was kind of like getting towards the end of that period of the band. So, um, we're all still friends and everything like that. But I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the road had taken its toll and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we're all still friends and everything like
Yeah.
that. But
Was that sort of the reason why the band sort of broke up 10 years ago?
yeah. Basically, yeah. I mean, those guys have been doing it like way longer than I had, and it's just like it's a pretty well established like fact, even amongst people who are just like listeners of music, that like, oh, being on the road must be tough. Yeah, like totally. Even for like super professional bands, like it's still just a lot of time away from home. So at some point there was like a confluence of the money was just like just enough and just okay, and then but the time away didn't justify it, and then like the bad habits on the road and just like relationships at home were being neglected. It was a whole thing. So um, eventually everybody kind of was just like, yeah, I don't know this. I don't know if this is working. We'd rather leave on a high note than like just come to hate this band for what it's doing to us. And so yeah, we sort of made like a decision to kind of call it a day, which was good because then it preserved all of our friendships and laid the road for what turned out to be future plans.
Yeah, which we'll get to later on. But it was
Yeah.
around after that time you sort of joined up with Revocation. So how'd you get to know like Dave and everybody?
So one of the last tours that Three Inches of Blood did was we were main support for Death Angel in like 2012, I think it was, and so it was Death Angel, 3 Inches of Blood, Battlecross, and Revocation, and that's where I met those guys. And so we all got along, and I thought they were all so funny, including the old drummer Phil Dubois. I thought he was hilarious, and Brett, Dave, Dan. I love them all. Todd Stern from Psychroptic, the bass player. He was like he's known the Revocation guys forever, and Todd's one of the best people that I know, and yeah, I mean, I sort of fell in love with all of them. So I'm like, ah, man, these guys are all fucking dipped in gold. They're awesome. And so, uh, and I presume they felt something similar about me. And yeah, then Phil had an accident, broke his arm, and then there was like a series of fill-in drummers. Me, John Rice, who's now playing in Flames, but John played in Job for a Cowboy at the time, or around that time. And then a guy named Toby Swope, who's an amazing drummer and guitar player, and he drummed for Skeleton Witch for a little while, and his brother Jared actually plays drums in Rivers of Nile.
Yeah,
And
great band.
yeah, yeah. And then there was Alex Rudinger, who I just got off the phone with. Actually,
Yeah,
I just
currently
talked to
killing
him.
it with Trivium.
Currently killing it with Trivium. So I was just talking to him about the whole gig and everything like that, because he had just, like, it's the first time I'd spoken to him since he's gotten it. So I'm friends with all those guys, and yeah, and then I was yeah, okay, so 3 Inches of Blood was like just breaking up, and we were just making plans to play like our last show, which was this one right here.
Yeah, I've seen the
And
videos. It was great.
yeah, that was an amazing couple shows, and then yeah, so Phil broke his arm. They needed a fill-in drummer. So I was talking to Brett on the phone one day, and I was just like, "How's it going?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we need a fill-in drummer and stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, I hope you find somebody." And then Brett's like, "Well, what about you?" And we were just like on the phone, and it just started like occurred to both of us. We're like, "Oh yeah, what about you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I never thought about." I'm like, I play death metal before, but 3 Inches of Blood isn't much of a death metal band, like not in that way. And I was like, yeah, let me listen and get back to you. And he's like, yeah, these are the two songs we're kind of asking people to kind of learn, because they're difficult. And so like, it was Dismantle the Dictator and Tirada Genesis, I think, were the songs. Anyways, so I just like learned them really quick and made a couple videos of me playing it. And they're like, yeah, sounds good. Sure. You want to do this tour that we're doing with Cannibal Corpse? It's like two months in Europe sharing a bus with Cannibal Corpse. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Sure, why not? And so that was October of 2014. That was my first tour with them. And again they had John Rice right before, John Rice right after me, and then Alex Rudinger right after me, after John. So they had like a sort of series of dudes that they were just like, I don't know, just hanging out with, right? And then eventually Phil like kind of like left the band. He just didn't end up coming back. And then they were like, okay, well, out of all these guys, what, whose situation fits us best? And then I guess I ended up being that guy, because I wasn't playing in any other bands at that time, really. And, I'm sure we all play the songs really well, but I think they like the way I played them, so I don't know. I guess that was probably part of the decision, but they asked if I wanted to join the band. I think it was March of 2015 or something like that, give or take, something like that. So, yeah, and that's when I joined Revocation in 2015 officially. So it's been over 10 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, and then going into 2016, you did Great as Our Sin. Love
Yeah.
this album. This was one of my favorite albums from 2016. And when you sort of were joining up with Revocation, were you like listening to like the previous albums and be like, this is what I need to do? Or did you want to like bring like your own style, being as you also came from like 3 Inches of Blood?
Yeah, so I hadn't like listened to, there's still like Revocation songs that I haven't even probably heard. Like, because they have so many they have so many records, right? And it's like I didn't necessarily go and like listen to all of them, but what I did do was like listen the fuck out of like all the songs that I needed to learn for the tour that I did with them, and then subsequent ones that I did after I joined the band. And so I was like, all right. I was like, cool. This is where the rubber meets the road with my style and their music. And then when Dave and I started writing for Great as Our Sin, him and I established our chemistry, and it works and still works really really well, because like Dave's a fucking, he's a musical
Yeah,
genius, that guy.
he's a genius, man.
Yeah, he's like, I'd put him up against any guitar player that I know in metal nowadays. There's a lot of great guitar players, but even guitar players that we all know, they've all like been like, oh, that guy's the real fucking deal. You know what I mean? Like Alex Skolnick, Marty Friedman, Tosin Abasi, like all these guys are like, oh, dude, Dave Davidson knows what the fuck he's doing. I'm like, yeah, I know that. But so it's a pleasure to work with somebody like that because like he really is like challenges me in a big way, like without overstretching me, asking me to do things that are like impossible or anything like that. Because like that's another thing that like guitar players can get into. They're like, hey, can you do this thing at 340 beats a minute? I'm like, no, I can't. They're like,
I think
well,
that's impossible.
you know what I mean? They ask stuff that's like that someone wrote on a computer, right? They're like, hey, can you write this thing that I wrote on the? Can you do this thing that I wrote on the computer? And it just sounds like a digital. It sounds like blips and shit like that. And but Dave and me writing for that record, it was really good. I think the first two songs I remember writing was Only the Spineless Survive and Communion. And like Dave and I sort of did that one in a lot of the songs in the room together. And I was like, we were doing like Communion, and it's like the and I remember he hit that chord and was like, all right, it needs something. I don't know what. I'm not sure what'll come next. And then I remember being like, okay, great. I'm gonna sit here for an hour and a half while this guy like noodles around and tries to find the right riff. I was expecting him to be like, dan, 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 dan. Oh, no, wait. Dan, 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 dan. Oh, no, that's not it. Dan, 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 dan. I was expecting just that to happen, right? Because that's kind of how, for the most part, it's like people's musical brains, in my previous experience, worked slower, like mine. But Dave was just like, what about this? I was like, oh, yeah, that's that. Yeah, let's do that. That's a good riff. And so I was like, holy shit, his brain works so fast and good, and like it all kind of like this guy can write a fucking song. So like I had to really push myself to keep up with him. You know what I mean? And so and he was throwing all sorts of things at me, like, what about this? What about that? I'm like, yeah, all right. Well, you mean like this? And so I really fucking, man, my playing super leveled up in my time with the band, but starting and writing that record was really fun because I was like, yes, finally I get to really get fucking punished and pummeled in terms of like, pulling out whatever talents inside of me, it was a lot of fun to write. It's always challenging. It makes me want to pull my head apart when we're doing Revocation new music, but that's because it's so, it's coming from so many different places, and it's usually new kind of vocabulary and like all sorts of crazy rhythmic shit's happening. So it's always a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely love this album. This pretty much this album was when the first time I saw you guys play. You played the Summer Slaughter tour with Cannibal Corpse and Nile and stuff. I
Yeah,
remember seeing you at the last show of the tour at the Old Masquerade in Atlanta, Georgia, and I
yeah,
think I've seen
yeah,
Revocation now like 8, 9 times already.
yeah. I remember that night. Carnifex was on that tour too, I think,
Yeah,
right?
my also good friends of mine, like Scott
Yeah,
and Fred, them are some buddies of mine.
yeah. Those guys are all great. Fred's a wonderful person, and Sean's wife Diana. I remember she bought us
Yeah, I know she also
merch.
does merch with with them
Yep.
too.
Yeah. She bought us all shots that night. I remember that night actually because I was like, wow, this is a great tour.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course next year will mark the 10-year anniversary of Great Is Our Sin. Is there any chance you can get like a celebration of this album?
Yeah. Well, I mean, next year is the band's 20th anniversary as a band.
Oh wow.
So yeah. So
Or do
yeah,
two anniversaries in one.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Fire Up the Blades is it turns 20 in
In
2027. So yeah,
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 yeah, we gotta like pester like Cam to like Cam and the boys to do like a 20-year tour of something.
yeah, 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 for sure. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
definitely.
man.
And then moving on to the next album, The Outer Ones. I like this album, but what was it kind of like going like from this to this? I feel did you like start to contribute to more on this one?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I always kind of contributed what was needed of me for each record. So it's like Dave and Dan wrote the music. Dan wrote it would go like this. Say we'd have 10 songs. Dave would write 8 songs in their entirety, and Dan would write 2 songs in their entirety. You know, and so I would come and work with both those guys. I'd have like writing sessions where I'd sit and just play shit with Dan, and he'd be like, I'm thinking maybe this beat here. I'm thinking, I don't know, it needs something. What would you do? And then I'd come up with something, and then he'd be like, yeah, that's good. And then we kind of just like flesh things out. So I mean, for the outer, the writing process is similar for Great Is Our Sin, for the Outer Ones, Nether Heaven, and you know, New Gods, New Masters, or whatever. It's all like Dave and I will just sit and either in a room together or over Skype, kind of like what we're doing now. I guess Skype's not a thing anymore, but and we'll just talk about the drum parts for these riffs. And oh, what about a thrash beat here? Yeah, maybe. I'm thinking maybe a blast beat. Oh yeah, cool, kind of thing. So I just come in and we establish the frame of the music, and then a lot of the fills and accents and stuff like that. That's where I shine for sure. Like where I'll come up with just like cool, better, more interesting ways to kind of like play a beat or like level it up and make it more interesting. But also, Dave and I will also talk about those elements as well. And Dave will be like, "Well, what about you hit the splashes and you hit them right here?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's a great idea," because he knows the riffs inside and out. And so yeah, it's just a combination. It's our chemistry, for sure. Where it's like, I don't think I could write those drum parts for Revocation all on my own, but I feel I wouldn't want to, because like I want to write them with Dave, because him and I would just like work so well writing that music together, because we both want it to be the best version that it can be. So I feel so much better having some like a partner to bounce that stuff off of as a sounding board, and someone who knows the music so intimately as he does. Whereas with 3 Inches of Blood, I'm left more to my own devices, and the guys don't have as many things to say about my drum parts unless they really stink, But that I have more free reign in that band. But with Revocation, we're really trying to craft something that's like progressive death metal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that you did like one tour where you played this album in its entirety. So how'd that idea come to be to play this in full? Because I believe that's the only
Right.
time where Revocation did like an album playthrough tour.
Right. I don't know. I'm not sure like how that came up, other than maybe it was just one of those things we had never done before, and we were like, yeah, let's do that, you know. And probably because we had already played like so many of those songs live, we're like, yeah, let's just do the whole thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think it's probably just you can market a tour around that as well, and I think it was a fun challenge, and it was just we really liked that record, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Was there any like songs that you had to like brush up on, be like, okay, how does this one go?
All of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Maybe some of the Dan songs. I remember. Oh yeah, this like the Cleaving Giants of Ice one, and Luciferus, I think, or is Cleaving Giants of Ice?
No, I don't think
Forget.
it's on this one, no.
No, 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 no. What is it's Luciferus, and what's the last song on that one?
A Starless Darkness.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So that was a fun one to do. I had a drum solo in that one, which was cool.
Yeah, awesome. And it was around the same year in 2018. You also played a bit with the Zimmer's Hole. So tell me about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I'm the drummer for Zimmer's Hole. Zimmer's Hole was like all the guys in Strappy and Lad minus minus Devin Townsend, but Devin Townsend produced all their albums. So it was very much a Jed Simon from Strappy and Lad who played rhythm guitar and occasional leads, and Byron Stroud who bass player for Strappy and Lad and played bass in Fear Factory. Um, and then this really talented, criminally underrated vocalist named Val, Chris Valago, but everyone calls him Val, and his stage name is Lord Heathen. He dresses up like the devil, like Satan,
Yeah,
and
can't get more fucking metal than that.
yeah, and he sounds like Glenn Benton and fucking Rob Halford. He's got
Holy shit.
he's got that exact range where he can do both very very well. And so they had this drummer named Steve Wheeler. So this is a really old project. Like I think their first record was like in the early '90s, '92 or '3 or something like that. Bound by Fire. Really,
97 actually.
no, it's earlier than that. It's yeah, it's I'm pretty sure it might say that, but I think that record came out earlier than that. Okay, but the one to listen to which is a perfect record to me is God, my memory sucks this morning. Bound by Fire, Legion of Flames. That's like that record is incredible. So Steve Wheeler played drums on that record. Bound by Fire, Legion of Flames, and then eventually Gene Hoglan became the drummer because Zimmer's Hole is one of Gene's favorite bands. And Gene played drums on When You Were Shouting at the Devil, We Were in League with Satan. And so, like I said, Devin Townsend produced all those albums. So, like, Val and Devin would work on the vocal parts and everything. And because Devin's, an incredible guitar player, songwriter, vocalist, he would push Val to, like, sing things that just, like, pull that kind of talent out of him. And Jed's riffs, I mean, geez, man, like, yeah, that band is one of my favorite bands ever. And then, plus they're funny too. Like so many of their songs are just about some inside joke that nobody knows about. But it's about some guy's ex-wife's toes that look like little
What?
that look like little pork rinds or something like that. So they wrote a song about it, or it's about some like old drug addict that they know who used to like sniff cocaine and talk about Jesus all the time. So they wrote a song about that guy, and it's just a really funny kind of almost Frank Zappa esque kind of humor in the music like that. And then yeah, but eventually Gene was out of town so much, and that band was basically based out of Vancouver, and that it's like when Gene would come and play shows, I would like set up his drums and I would sort of like play the songs with the band to help them kind of warm up a bit and get the sound dialed in, and then and then uh, and then eventually enough times that it happened where it actually sounded really good when we were doing it together. And so then it was just kind of like, all right, well, Gene's always busy and he's always away. And, we sounded really good with Ash. And Ash is like, he's a little more available and our sense of humor is all really like gel well together. So it just sort of ended up that I sort of slipped into like kind of becoming the drummer. And so I played maybe 4 or 5 shows with them thus far. And I adore Zimmer's Hole, and again, they're a criminally underrated band, and people got to listen to it. Like all the records are great, but like if you're a straight up metal fan, I think Legion of Flames will probably be up to everybody's taste.
Yeah, I gotta check that one out.
But you also got to listen to the vocal performance on a song called 1312, which is on When You Were Shouting at the Devil, We Were in League with Satan. That record, yeah, that's Gene playing drums on that. I was around for that recording session, but you got to listen to Val's vocal performance on that. It's just like no one fucking sounds that good in metal, like to my ear with that kind of a range. People like specialize in one or the other, but like Val kind of like in that song especially, he kind of like does a little bit of everything, and I'm like, wow, this is like people need to know more about this band. So yeah,
Definitely. And then flash forward to 2020, you did The Ritual Dictates with Given to Despair, of course, with you and Justin from 3 Inches. So how did you end up starting that band? Because I know they've been around before the album came out.
yeah. Justin and I were just like we're buddies, and we our chemistry was like really quick. We wrote song like Justin's another one of those musical genius minds where he can think of an entire song. He's like, I have a song, I have the whole song in my mind, and I'm like, oh, crazy. And he's like, it does this, and then it does this, and it goes here. And it's like 3.5 or 5 minutes long. I'm like, wow. I'm like, damn, that is a whole song, and it goes through like all these peaks and valleys that are super interesting. I'm like, man, this guy's fucking. He's got such a musical brain. It's amazing. So yeah, we're just like he does everything except drums, basically. So he's a good bass player, keyboard player, singer, and fucking guitar player, obviously. And yeah, so our chemistry was just really like he's like, here's the song. I'm like, here's the drums, and then we're like, great, let's record it. It all came together so quick. And I wrote basically all the lyrics for "Given to Despair," and yeah, it's just like that was just one of those kind of studio projects. We had played a handful of times live, and it's just really fun and easy to do. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. And then that next album, No Great Loss, I thought that was pretty good. What was that like going from Given to Despair to No Great Loss?
Yeah. So that Given to Despair was like pretty straight up like kind of death metal ish, and then the No Great Loss was a lot. It was metal, but it was also like it was almost kind of like a little closer to Typo Negative almost in certain places, and yeah, and there's a song I really like on there. It's called Romanticism and Crapulence. It's a weird title, but that song is like really. I just wanted to make sure I had the name right. But man, oh man, that song is really fucking good. Is that the wait? Hold on. Yeah. Oh Jesus, I don't see it on the streaming services here. Man, did we put that out? I sure. Did we put that out? Oh wait, hold on. Is it on? Oh, okay. It's on this. It's on a something called the Chamber of Reflection. I think it's called.
Yeah, the
It's
EP.
yeah, the EP. That's right. I forgot we did that. um, it's on that. That song's really good. It's just like man, I love the way that song flows. But yeah, man, I'm up for especially with a project like that. Like if Justin's like, hey, I'm kind of writing in this direction. I'm like, cool. I don't care how weird it is really. So we just I'm down to go into like whatever territory and everything. So yeah, I mean that's a fun band to work on. And it seems to happen every like few years where we kind of just you know come up with something and we do it all at once, so we do it pretty quickly and then it just gets done.
Totally. And then tell me about like Aqua Tofana, of course, featuring Brittany Slays from Unleash the Archers. What was that? How did she end up like featuring on that song?
Yeah, I think Justin just wrote a song that he's just like I think it maybe just needs like a a female like counterpart because it's about like a woman poisoning her husband. So it seemed to make sense to have like a female like vocal in there, and she's an incredible vocalist. Obviously, she's like really super talented, and yeah, and she's from Vancouver. We're from Vancouver. It just seemed to be one of those things that made sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's it.
definitely. Like, and then the same year, 2022, you did the last Revocation album, Nether Heaven. Loved this album. One of my favorite albums from 2022. What was it, the whole writing like for this?
So like I mentioned before, like Dave and I basically write in a similar way for each record, but yeah, that was of course that was around it was around COVID times that we were writing that, but it's like Dave and I got a lot of writing done just like on video calls. So it's like he'd like submit me a bunch of riffs or an entire song, um, and then we just sit and talk about it on Skype. Oh, this part I'm thinking a thrash beat. This part I'm thinking a blast beat. I'm like, okay, okay. I record it. I go I record the meeting. I go sit on my drums. I have them all mic'd up. I have the song loaded up, and then I listen to mine and Dave's conversation. I'm like, okay, he said there he's thinking of a blast beat. Now I'll play this, and then I record part by part, and then I add my own fills and my own kind of like ideas, and then I send it back to him. He's like, this is great. This is all great except this one part. You got this wrong. I actually meant this, and then I'm like, okay. Then I'll go back and do a revision, and then we kind of get it up to a point where it's maybe like 85% kind of done, and and then and then we're like, okay, I think we're ready to record, and then we go in and we kind of just did it that way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course I want to talk about Recrucified featuring, of course, Corpse Grinder and the late Trevor Sturnad from Black Dahlia Murder. What was that like working with them on that song?
I think that was one of the last things that Trevor ever did. Um, Unfortunately, obviously, but yeah, I wasn't in the studio with any of those guys, but I obviously knew them. I knew them all pretty well, and yeah, it was just like I thought it was a killer idea, to have them involved, obviously, because they're fucking some of the best metal vocalists that ever lived. So you know, that's all. Corpsey is a good buddy of ours, and Trevor, uh, rest in peace, my friend. He was a great friend of ours, and yeah, one of the fucking best metal vocalists that ever lived. That guy. So we're happy to have them on the record.
Nice. Nice. I remember seeing you guys like three times that year. I saw you all like twice on that Cannibal Corpse tour, and then of course the one tour you did with Chrissy, and that was a sick
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Christian, I love those guys.
Yeah, also good friends of mine.
Yeah, yeah, they're great.
Hell yeah. And then going into 2023, of course, Three Inches of Blood had also reformed. So how did you end up, how'd the band ended up getting back together?
Yeah. Well, I was going through a breakup at the time, and I was like, oh man, I was like, I want I was like, I need to put my energy into something positive right now. So we had like talked about it, and I think at some point we had met up and actually jammed, maybe just for fun, once or twice, and we were like, oh, this sounds really good. And I had gotten a lot better on the drums in the subsequent years of playing in Revocation because it really stretched my abilities playing in that band. So when I came back to Three Inches of Blood, I was able to. It was a lot more under like my control playing that music, and it just sounded better than ever from all of our parts. And so I think we are like, man, no, this works. This still works. And and we are like, should we do it? You guys want to do it? And we're like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. It's like we kind of just didn't know how to how to craft a return, you know. And so at some point, like it's like right around May of 2023, I was like, all right. I was like, let's. I need to do something positive right now. Let's figure this out. And so we started kind of sending emails and making phone calls and stuff like that. And yeah, we reached out to Live Nation, and to their credit, I mean, they were really enthusiastic and super helpful, and gave us the full merch cut and all that stuff. I mean, they were just like they really helped us like make it a fucking really good return. And once it was announced and the tickets went on sale, the show sold out like in 24 hours, and then we
Oh,
added
wow.
another one, and that one sold out probably in the next 36 hours or something like that, and then we had to add a third show. So it was like it was an amazing moment after we announced it, and then we were like, oh fuck yeah, it's on. And that was at the Commodore Ballroom where we played our last show the first time.
Yeah, comes in full
And
circle.
yeah, 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 and that's like like 1,000 cap venue, give or take. And so it was a hell of a weekend, and we made it good, and it was just like it was wonderful. It was a good decision,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah,
Yeah, were you like nervous at all playing that first show back?
I was excited. Yeah, I don't really get nervous too much anymore, but I was excited. I guess I was nervous in the sense of like of like, yeah, no, this all needs to go well. And I was involved in so many aspects of the just the show, of like, between the merch and the production, and I mean, we had tons of help. We had so many good people in our corner, all of our techs and everything. Byron Stroud was back helping us out, who was our bass player for a while, but he was kind of helping us with the the logistics and the tour managing and stuff like that. We have this great tech named Kalen Dizowich, who was doing all the guitar teching for us and stuff like that. Our Revocation sound guy, Joel. We flew him out to do sound for us, and Elodie and Anna selling merch. I mean, we had a crack team of people, and it was badass, man. It was a really killer weekend. But yeah, so I wasn't really nervous because we had a lot of good people in our corner. But I was just like, I had the brain of like, okay, like, remember when this song happens, this needs to happen. Remember when this happens, this needs to happen. I just had the production brain kind of going, and then playing was kind of like one of the last things I was worried about.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like, and so of course like of course you played now been the band's been out for back for like 2 years now. Have you started also maybe possibility of some new 3 Inches of Blood music?
We've talked about it, and there have been riffs floating around and everything like that. So I think it's a possibility. I don't know. I don't have a timeline for you, but like, you know, I would like to think that over the next like year, we're probably going to be like chipping away at the idea and seeing how it materializes. We'll only record it if it's like really good, you know. But if at the end of this next like year and a half we're like, none of these songs are good, then you probably won't be hearing anything from us for a while. But we've talked about it, and we are kind of working on it a little bit here and there in pieces. But everyone's pretty busy, so but we're definitely open to it, and I would love to see that happen. Yeah, I just don't know what kind of timeline that's going to be.
Yeah. And what about wise? Can we expect maybe some more shows in 2026?
Yeah, we're playing the Hills Heroes Festival in Houston on March 19th, I think it is. So that's our only show that we have so far for 2026. But we're hoping to maybe do. We'd love to go play Denver. We'd love to go play Chicago.
Or
We'd
Atlanta?
love, or Atlanta. Yeah, totally. We've talked about Atlanta before, and Victoria, kind of close to where we live. We'd love to do another Vancouver show at some point. So yeah, I don't foresee a tour or anything like that, because that's kind of just like one of the things we just aren't really interested in. But fly in shows and things that kind of make sense for us, like, time wise and financially, those are all always fun to do, but they're kind of few and far between. But it's a good thing for us. It keeps everybody happy. You know.
Definitely. We got
Yeah.
two more things to talk about. Of course, last year you joined up with a Grave Mass and you did Luciferin Rain. I thought it was a
Yeah.
sick EP, and me being into black metal, I was like, holy shit, this sounds fucking awesome. So,
Yeah.
how'd you end up joining up with that band, and of course under the guise Destroyer of Souls?
So I've known all those guys since I was a teenager. They're all about like 15 to 20 years older than I am. Uh, Maybe not 20 years older, but they're all a little bit older than I am. But anyways, Val from Zimmer's Hole, is the singer for that band. So you have heard him before. Um, so yeah, Val sings in that. It's the bass player for the band The Goalers, a very famous Vancouver metal band, been around for 25 years. Walter is his name, uh, aka the Bowels of Hell. He's the bass player in that band. The guitar player for Punch Drunk that I had mentioned before also he played in a band called Savannah. A guy named Cam Croach, great guy. Uh, he's one of the guitar players, aka murderer of colonizers, because he's part native him, so he murderer of colonizers, hence the name. Uh, and then a guy named Rico Forrester, great dude. He also played in the band Savannah, and he played in Just Cause as well. So we had played together previously, and he is Mayan Hate is his name, and yeah, so we sort of just put that band together a couple of years ago, and actually Rico and Val put that band together, and yeah, we just like sort of made a record pretty quick in terms of writing it, and then just we've maybe done like 7 or 10 gigs or something like that so far, and we all dress up in corpse paint and everything like that, and that's a really fun project. It's a really good excuse to hang out with those guys, because like I said, we've all known each other for so long, and we all go back. Our bands all go back like so far, like Savannah, Punch Drunk, Just Cause, The Goalers, Angel Grinder, Zimmer's Hole. It's all like this, like just like old school, like boys club, of guys who have been playing metal for over 20 years. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, the new Revocation album, New Gods, New Master. It's been out since September. It is absolutely a kick-ass album. So how was the whole writing and recording process like for New Gods, New Masters?
Yep. Yeah. Again, very similar, like I had mentioned previously, but yeah, that one overstretched. It stretched my abilities big time. Yeah, it's like, Dave and I were doing so much in the studio together. I kind of average about like recording 2 songs a day, because like, you really need to like nail the performance. And then also there was so much that I feel like this record, more than any of the other ones, we were doing so many like rewriting of drum parts. We're like, well, what if we did this? And I was like, oh shit. And then we were like sitting down, and like Dave and I are just talking about, like, again, like under the gun. Well, what if instead of a blast beat we did something on the toms? I'm like, okay, those are 2 completely different things, but like, what did you have in mind? He's like, well, what about like, you're kind of like doing this kind of thing, and I'm like, oh, what, like this kind of thing? He's like, sort of. What? But the snare goes here. I'm like, what? I'm like, well, like this. He's like, yeah, like that. And then we kind of record it, and then we do that for so many different parts, and like listen back, and then eventually we'd have that oh shit moment where it's like, oh yeah, that's the one, that's the part, that's it. So we were doing lots of digging for gold in the studio together, where we're just like going through a bunch of different iterations of drum parts, writing on the spot, which it's not to say we didn't prepare. We totally prepared, but it was just one of those like last minute, like, what if we did this kind of thing? So there was a lot of that thrown at me, and it's like, I mean, it really stretches your brain to do that, where you're writing things for a really, seminal band. When you're doing that on the spot, it's like, it really forces you to have to like maintain your calm and composure, and try and just like see how deep the tank is in your creativity and your stoicism.
Yeah. And musically with New Gods, New Master, did you wanted to pick up where you left off or continue in the same vein as Nether Heaven, or did you wanted to try something different that Revocation hasn't done before?
Well, I mean, we're a progressive death metal band, so it's always going to sound like that in that vein. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I don't think, like, it's like the Black Dahlia Murders records all sound like the Black Dahlia Murder. Oh, they're not gonna be a fucking reggae band overnight or anything like that, right? So I mean, we kind of continue in that that vein. You know what I mean? We write progressive death metal music, and you know, Dave has a really good knack for, you know, not having the songs all sound like carbon copies of each other. So, um, in terms of doing something new, it's just like the new thing I'm always concerned with is like kind of like doing the best version of whatever the song is, you know? So, excuse me, if that means that I need to, you know, play a shuffle beat or do some tom tom stuff, or like, you know, do something that's new that I didn't necessarily think of off the top of my head. Uh, you know, I'm gonna go wherever that leads, and so again, if all these songs are up to the same quality and standard of all the previous records and match or exceed that, then I did my job. You know, that's just like I'm concerned with making like good art. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I think I've done that for all the Revocation records I played on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm proud of all of them.
Yeah. And of course, like the album's now been out since September. How's like the overall like reception and feedback been? Have you been like pleased with all the response?
Yeah, everyone's response has been really great. You know, like like I mean, whether or not it's their favorite record, I mean, people say it's their favorite, and then some people like Netherheaven better. Some people like the Outer Ones more. Some people like, I mean, I don't know. It's just the way it is. You know, I don't I'm not I'm not upset by any of it. You know, if people still keep enjoying the band and keep coming out to the shows, and like, you know, I think that's a great thing. So um, the like subjectivity of their tastes when it comes to which record's their favorite is kind of like, you know, whatever to me, because you can't expect everybody your latest thing to be everyone's favorite. But the response has been really great, though. You know, some people it is their new favorite one. You know, and it's certainly one of my favorite things that we've done. You know, and I'm just stoked that we still get to go out there and do it. You know,
Yeah,
it's great.
definitely. And of course, with the new album, we have a new lineup change. You now have Alex Weber and Harry Landon on bass and guitars, respectively. So, how
Yeah.
did they end up joining up with Revocation? And they maybe bring something new to the band that they didn't have previously?
Yeah. So Alex played bass on the record. Um, Brett Brett ended up obviously leaving. I think it was last year or something like that. But you know, I mean, Brett had been in the band for quite a while. Certainly longer than I had been in the band. And I mean, you know, it was time for a change for him. He just wasn't feeling it anymore, and that totally happens. That happens a lot. You know what I mean? To many different bands, and you know, I still love Brett, and he's one of the best bass players I've played with, and he's awesome. You know, and but yeah, eventually it was like, okay, Brett left. We need a bass player. You know, we knew that we've met Alex. Alex is a great guy, very disciplined, and really super talented, amazing bass player. You know, I mean, what more are you looking for in a player? And he's a team player too. And yeah, he's like him and Dave have a lot in common. They're kind of like they're like school jazz nerds, you know. So Alex gels well in this band because he has a really he has a knowledge of that kind of stuff, and he's a great vocalist too. Because you know, this like Revocation is kind of like a two singer kind of band. At you know, when you look at it, like on the records, you know, Dave will do most of the singing, but you know, Dan was like the second vocalist for a long time. You know, it's not like a two singer band like Three Inches of Blood is, but it's like the duties were shared. You know, a lot of the time. So Alex, I love the sound of his voice. You know, when he has a band called Exist with Max Phelps, who also he's Chuck in Death to All,
Yeah.
right? And Max is a great singer and guitarist and an amazing person. And so Alex plays in Exist with him. So I had heard his vocals before. I was like, oh man, this guy's a kick-ass vocalist. And And yeah, Harry didn't play on the record, but but Harry's been in the band for a little over a year officially, but then he's been like touring with us for a couple of years now, and he played in a band called Cognitive from New Jersey.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, and I didn't know him before that, but I'm sure we met at some point. But then I think Dave, Dave knows who's a good guitar player, and you can't be a slouch. You can't be like a shitty guitar player and play in Revocation. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
because you're keeping up with Dave Davidson, so
Yeah, can't
so there.
half-ass anything.
No, it's not going to get by Dave. Dave's not going to be like, oh yeah, that sounded terrible, but it's fine. That's not going to happen. So yeah, Harry just came in and he's just like, he's really good guitar player, good work ethic. Does vocals and everything too. So it's like, you know, he fit in really well as well. So
Yeah. And still talking about New Gods, New Masters, what would you say like the overall themes and messages are for the album?
well, I mean, I'm sure you could infer it, and Dave's talked about it, but it's about the ascension of AI and stuff like that, which is obviously that's a
Another can
hot
of worms.
that's another
Like, 'cause
can of
there's
worms.
always like that mixed feeling. Like, I really think it really depends on how it's used.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, I think it's more about where it ends up,
Yeah.
and I guess it's a bit of a prediction. It's like a grim prediction about where it ends up, and ultimately that's a lot of the lyrical themes about it. So it's like how it's like no gods, no masters is the saying. So it's like new gods, new masters. Ultimately, that's the digital AI god is kind of what people are ultimately replacing their humanity with, and how it's going to probably fuck us over in the long run. So
Yeah. You
that's
can't really, it can't really, it doesn't really, like, sure, AI, there's some, it really depends. Like, you can make AI music for fun, but it can never, like, have that kind of, like, human emotion that behind it that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
pretty much music is known for all these years.
yeah, 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 exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, with this album, you have a lot of guest features on this. Of course, working with Travis Ryan from Cali Cap, Johnny from Job for a Cowboy, Luke from Gorguts, and probably butchers his name, Gilad Hexelman. And so,
Gilad,
yeah,
Gilad,
Gilad. Yeah.
yeah.
So, what was it like working with them, and how did they end up guesting on the album?
Well, we're friends with all those people listed for sure. I mean, Gilad, I don't know him, but Dave knows him, and he's like this like legendary jazz guitar player. So he did his solo at the end of the All Seeing, and then guitar solo, and then the vocalists, we had all toured with them at some point. Toured with Luke, toured with Johnny, toured with uh, Travis, and yeah, it's just one of those things, like it's fun to get somebody in there, and you can do it remotely. It's like Dave's like, here are the lyrics, here's the part, send them the song, they send it back. It's a fun thing to talk about. It's cool to work with them. It's a good excuse. Like if they ever, if we're ever on tour together, we can play the song. They can come up and be a guest vocalist, and it changes the flavor of the song a little bit too. And it's just like that's just kind of how how it goes in metal.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think with like collaborating with like different artists, maybe kind of like open some like new ideas to like Revocation?
Yes, but it's not like it's gonna necessarily do it in the sense that like it changes the way that we write or anything like that. But it'll just be like more. There's like it's just like icing on top of what we're already doing that just makes it sound cool. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course also talking about like your drum playing, whether it be with Revocation or Three Inches of Blood. But as a drummer, do you usually need to have like parts written in order to lay down your part? Or do you usually have like a whole drum pattern written and the rest of the band can write according to that?
Yeah. I kind of I like a marriage of talking. I like talking about it with the guitar player, whoever it is. Just something as simple as like, hey, I'm thinking of a thrash beat there. What do you think? Yeah, that sounds good. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I like to kind of take the reins from there. You know, I don't necessarily like it when it's all programmed out or whatever, because then I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Like I can do that, but I'd rather like like think of this stuff from the ground up. You know, that's how I like to approach writing drum parts and stuff like that. Because like yeah, I want to put the humanity into it. You know what I mean? And yeah, so that's how I like to go about it. I discussion with the guitar player.
Yeah. And of course, you play with like a variety of different bands. Like Revocation is just really just heavy thrash death metal, whereas Three Inches of Blood is more just straight up like heavy metal. So, how different of a mind frame is it to playing with different bands? Do you have to be in a certain mind frame depending on the project, or do you have like free reign to do whatever you want?
Well, ultimately, I got free reign, but it's like, but I just adapt the mind frame and the approach to whatever the band is. You know what I mean? So it's not gonna make sense for me to do this blast beat death metal crazy part over a chorus like Deadly Sinners or something like that. You know what I mean? So you gotta just like again I'm trying to be like greater than the sum of its parts, where like I'm not trying to be so boring that the guitarist can just do whatever, but I'm also not trying to like steal the show in the sense that like I'm trying that I end up taking away from the fact that this is the chorus and then this is where the vocals are supposed to shine and soar above everything else. Like sometimes you need to pull back, and then you just it's I mean ultimately it's about the idea of knowing when to jump out in front and when to kind of hang back to allow someone else to have their moment, and that's kind of the push and pull of playing in a band. You see good bands do it all the time. Like Judas Priest does that masterfully. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so kind of also like in the end to sort of wrap things up, what's next for Revocation or Three Inches of Blood in terms of like tours and stuff? I know you mentioned some other covered some other things. It's just anything else that you would also like to plug.
Yeah. Like to plug. Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, like Revocation, we're going to be doing some more touring next year for sure. Um, and 3 inches, we're going to play some more shows. In terms of like new music, yeah, I mean, like I said before, 3 inches will chip away at new music, and Revocation, I'm sure we'll end up writing more music in the future at some point. It's kind of just what we do. And other bands that I play in currently, I mean, Zimmer's Hold will probably work on some new shit. Grave Mass will work on some new shit too. It kind of just depends on when the stars align. It's a bit of like a ships in the night kind of situation where it's like, or constellations or something like that. Occasionally, where it's like we have some free time, get some free time, and then we just like kind of make it happen. I run this fan page for a band called Don Caballero, and I don't know if people have never heard of that band, but you should go listen to them. They're one of the best instrumental bands that's ever existed, and that drummer is like I know a lot of good drummers, and I've heard a lot of good drummers in my day, but I've never heard anybody play like Damon Che from the band Don Caballero. And so, if anybody's interested, they should go listen to any Don Caballero record. But they have no vocalist, except for maybe a few songs on the last record. But go listen to Don Cab 2. Go listen to What Burns Never Returns. Go listen to World Class Listening Problem. Those records are all incredible. And I plug it because I run the social medias for them, and I wasn't hired to do it. I just made it. I made those social medias, and then started contributing to them of like bringing in like a whole bunch of just material that was otherwise like kind of just floating out in the ether, and I just sort of piled it all into one place for fans of them. And I did it with the blessing of the drummer, Damon Che, who's a good buddy of mine now. But he's like I said, I've never heard anybody play drums like him. And I don't mean it in the sense that like he's like how Buddy Rich is the best drummer. I mean it in the sense that like I've never heard anybody like write drum parts like this, and I don't even know where you would begin to teach somebody how to play like this. You just can't. I've never heard anybody kind of like be this amorphous kind of stylistic changeling of a drummer and play something that was like utterly perfect and with the pocket and authority of John Bonham, you know, unreal.
Nice.
So definitely check them out. And yeah, Damon does lessons and shit too. So if you I do lessons as well. So if people want to hit me up for lessons, Ash Pearson Lessons at gmail.com. And yeah, I do them online, or if you're in the Vancouver area, I can do them there. And there's other stuff that's sort of in the works. So I just can't talk about it yet because
Yeah.
it hasn't materialized or anything like that. But I'll definitely have a handful of other things to kind of like talk about next year as well. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Ash, for this conversation. It's just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching, Jing?
Oh yeah. Well, I would say that I know that things are crazy out there and times are tough and everything like that. I would encourage everybody to try and remain calm, and I would also encourage people to, put their phones down and pick up a book, put their phones down and go see a friend or go walk outside or pick up that instrument that you were always neglecting or learn that language that you've been neglecting. Again, sort of in that feint of like, reclaiming your humanity from what's going on, and how the world seems to be falling apart and stuff like that. It can be difficult to try and navigate that kind of a thing, but I wouldn't be so like naive to claim that I have any sort of an answer or anything like that. But I think being kind to people and unplugging from some of that stuff is a good thing to do. And again, just get back in touch with you know things that are actually good for your soul. That's a good thing to do. I try and do that as whenever I can, and family, friends. That's an important thing, and yeah, try and stay positive. It's a hard thing to do when you're going through a tough time. It seems like the only thing that's real is the way the world looks currently, but things do change, and change is constant. And if you ever need something to kind of lift you up, go listen to Rush.
Yeah,
Go, go
the
listen to
goat.
go listen to the first 10 Rush albums, and go listen to the lyrics, and that will lift up your spirits.
Well said. So everybody, Ash Pearson from Revocation and 3 Inches of Blood. We'll see you next time.